what fuels, I guess, your passion to lead people and, with your company and provide this, I guess, opportunity for the designers and people that work for you?
Well, it's so ironic because looking back to even like college, I never really anticipated owning my own firm.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened out of necessity, like I said.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empowering Design, show number 7, where we talk all things design and business with a focus on leadership. Here with me today is my good friend Marni Ratner from Studio M Interiors, and we'll talk about how she got into the design industry, what her leadership style is like, and then also what kind of trends she sees coming forth in multifamily residential. Hey, Marni, thank you for joining me today on Empowering Design. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into the design industry?
The story kind of goes way back to about the age of 10 or so.
Oh, wow.
And I was the kid who wrote the paper about what do you want to be when you grow up, and I said an interior designer. I have no idea how I knew what that was or that I wanted to do that, but somehow that's what came out.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was thinking residential designer was really all I knew because I loved looking at people's homes, and had a relative who was a designer here locally in Atlanta. And I used to shadow her, not much older than that age, just for fun whenever we had a break from school.
Oh, wow. So as a kid, how'd you get from, loving interior design to kind of where you are now?
I went on to the University of Texas at Austin with a degree in interior design. And at that school at the time, you had a choice of a concentration in fine art or architecture.
Okay.
And I was just kind of intrigued by architecture. So I went the architecture route, and I don't know if I want to say I made the mistake of taking.
I don't think we ever make mistakes. We always learn or
That's
grow.
True. Well, I may have gone the hard route by taking architecture 1 and 2 crammed into a summer series. So there were not just all-nighters or 2 in a row, but I think when I got to the 3rd in a row,
Yeah.
I was getting a little burnt out, but it was a great experience. It was kind of like the breakfast club of college students, because there were people fulfilling their major requirements like me.
Yeah.
There were people just dabbling in it. There were architects in it. It was just this crazy mix of people taking those classes. And it really was a great experience if you could stay awake for all of it.
Yeah, I remember when I went to design school, there was a lot of all-nighters, especially with my last quarter. I mean, I was doing at least one a week, if not, the last week, I think did like 2 or 3.
So then I came straight back to Atlanta after college, thinking that there would be a plethora of jobs. And every time I interviewed, they said, "Oh, you came from Texas? Why didn't you stay in Texas? There's great jobs there." And I said, because everyone said there were no jobs in Texas. And unfortunately, there were no jobs in Atlanta in the early 90s.
All right. So after coming back to Atlanta, what went on from there?
So then I just interviewed here and there and everywhere, literally. And the only silver lining I could figure out was that by the time I was done interviewing at about 25 of the largest firms in town, okay, I quickly realized which ones I didn't want to work for as much as the ones I did want to work for.
Yeah, been there.
Company culture pretty quickly. But I did, I was fortunate enough to land a job at a 3-person firm. And it was great because I just was thrown right into the fire. I barely knew AutoCAD and they stuck me on AutoCAD and I kind of learned it as I went.
Okay.
And got to do a little of everything. We specialized in food service for mainly for airports. So we did a ton of restaurants and we did duty-free shops all over the country. A little bit of tenant work.
Okay. What was the name of this company that you said? I mean, that's kind of what I feel. The smaller companies definitely make you grow more and learn fast and quick.
Yeah. It was called KRA and it's no longer in existence. It was an offshoot of ASD.
Okay.
So anyway, right after the Olympics, a lot of our work started slowing down because we were doing so much over at the airport here leading up to the Olympics.
Okay.
And so they gave us Fridays off as a way to cut salaries a little bit.
Oof.
And that just wasn't going to work for me long term. So I immediately started interviewing. And then I got a job at Niles Bolton. And they have a full service interior design department, as well as landscape architecture and then regular architecture.
And they've been in business for a very long.
They have.
Very long time.
I was there for about 8 years. And
oh, wow.
I think the best part was just the opportunity to learn and grow because I had several different department heads throughout my time there. And they had very different management styles, creative styles, personality styles. And so I kind of persevered through all of them. And it ended up being really good as far as getting to work on all different project types and things like that.
So what did you do after Niles Bolton?
After Niles Bolton, I had my daughter and was there for about 2 more years.
Okay.
And then I worked on the office renovation at Niles Bolton, and we always used to joke that the facility managers at our clients most likely didn't stay after going through an office renovation.
Really?
So I kind of lived that scenario and decided it was time to move on. And I went to Venadal Cave, which is now Nelson.
Yeah. They bought Venadal a couple years ago. I remember when they did that. Yeah. And I actually had an interesting job at Venadal Cave. It was a new position that Ed Cave had come up with called, the title wasn't so interesting, but it was called Quality and Research, but it was basically creating a database of all of their projects and all of the details, like who was the GC, who were the commercial brokers, how much did it cost to build. Oh, wow.
Just this huge database of, because they did so much tenant work in corporate that they just were sitting on a landmine of past information that they could use to help them grow for the future.
That's crazy. So they made you do that as an interior designer versus, hire some, admins or what?
Well, that was the funny thing. It was appealing to me because it was a part-time position.
Okay.
And so I was kind of looking to take a break after getting a little burnout at the previous firm. And I was burnt out creatively as well as just physically, mentally, everything. And so when he said it was, part-time, but I would still get full benefits, I kind of somehow finagled that out of the deal.
Wow. That's great. I don't know any company that does that.
Not anymore. It was a struggle because I had built up so much responsibility at the previous firm and I had client contact and felt relatively important. And then I went to the new place. And since it was part-time and it was very team oriented, but I had no team, I was just my own person.
Yeah.
And I almost had to prove myself all over again to every single designer there because I had a partially closed office and everyone else was in cubicles. And it was kind of like, who is this random girl coming in, and why is she getting an office like on day one? And it was very odd. It was almost like I was used to having a boss that was micromanaging everything.
Yeah.
And then I went there, and it was like, as long as I was doing my job, they trusted that I was doing it, and I had full independence.
Wow, that's crazy.
Then,
or go ahead.
Then I started missing the creative, and I started missing specifically the things that had made me want to leave so bad of the other firms. So
yeah.
the grass is always greener. But
yeah. And go ahead. Sorry.
It was it was less creative and more administrative on a higher, on a high level.
Yeah.
So I did not have any client contact, but it was almost like the designers within the firm were my clients, because I had to get information from them.
Yeah.
So it was different.
What'd you do for besides the admin work? How did that transition into your next thing?
Another thing that I kind of fell into while I was there is, I think at some point I expressed the desire to do something creative in addition to the admin work. And so they basically said, why don't you just periodically check with the different teams? And some teams were doing more creative work than others, like more true corporate work versus just basic tenant work. Okay. And they said, you can kind of be the special projects person. And so one of them had a monumental stair, so I helped detail the stairs, or a custom reception desk. And so it was just enough to keep my interests going creatively.
Yeah, so you got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so that was really nice.
That's cool.
Then I left there and decided, by then I had a second child.
Okay.
And I decided that the pace of a typical design firm was not going to jive with me and two very young children, one being a baby.
Yeah. So, yeah. The design industry is very, it's more for the, if you're single, it's very high paced.
So I decided that if I were to go out on my own, I had already kind of taken a big pay cut from the full-time Niles Bolton position to the part-time Wiedendahl Cave. And I said, you know what, the worst I'll do is kind of break even, like make the same that I'm already making right now. And I was fortunate and ran into an acquaintance who is still an apartment developer.
Okay.
And they were kind of in their heyday. And I literally worked for them. They were my first client. And I did 10 years worth of new construction, apartment builds, soup to nuts, and a couple renovations. And that's really what kind of propelled Studio M to get started.
Well, that's cool. So when did you start Studio M?
So by way of that first client, we, someone would leave there, and then several years later they'd pop up somewhere else. And so then we got reacquainted. And so I ended up getting work, with their company, and it just kind of mushroomed like that, kind of like a family tree.
Yeah.
And so throughout the years, we've not only done multifamily, we have also done some retail that we've fallen into. We did the Cambria showroom in Buckhead.
Oh, wow.
Which was also supposed to have an addition. Hopefully it will still happen. It got derailed a little bit from COVID, but
yeah,
we've done some private student housing projects.
Okay.
We have done a couple of cabinet showrooms, orthodontist offices, really just a wide array of project types. I think kind of what we're most suited for is, we call it boutique commercial. So not necessarily the high-rise sprawling tenant, but more of the offshoot venues, like a one-off, one-story building, two-story building, or something that's in a creative area or a creative field.
Interesting. Kind of like a boutique hotel where they're kind of smaller, but also unique.
Right. more customized. We have also done a good share of residential, single family residential. We don't really market toward that, but when it has come to us, we've done it.
Well, I mean, it's always good to diversify, and if it pays the bills and it keeps you creative, then it's worth it, I think.
Exactly. That's kind of how we look at it too.
All right. So Marni, what's the culture of Studio Interiors like?
So we are pretty relaxed, and we're relatively small.
Yeah.
So that helps. We're very collaborative.
That's good.
We much prefer to be working in person, which we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that throughout most of the year. Because we're so small and our office has plenty of space.
So how many people I guess you have working for you in your office?
Right now it's myself and a senior designer and an intern.
So are you guys doing a little bit in the office, mostly in the office? How's that working for you?
We're doing mostly in the office.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like, I guess?
I mean, we have a lot of fun. We, like I said, it's pretty laid back, relatively casual, kind of as long as the work gets done.
Yeah.
It kind of flexible. I would say kind of flex time mentality. And it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the workload too.
Okay. What fuels, I guess, your passion to lead people and, with your company and provide this, I guess, opportunity for the designers and people that work for you?
Well, it's so ironic because looking back to even like college, I never really anticipated owning my own firm.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened out of necessity. Like I said, after I had my kids.
And that's kind of what happened to me. It kind of happened out of necessity. I was like, I cannot find a job that has a really good, the culture I'm looking for or the right fit. And I'm like, I'm just going to create it.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it was more logistical.
Yeah.
So, and then it just kind of stuck. I mean, then I got really excited about the idea early on. And then I had one full-time employee for about 6 years, and we just really made a great team. And it was, we were very effective and efficient.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how much two people can get done in the design field.
That's one thing that I've learned is, in the beginning, you think you can do it all. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned last year not last year, actually the end of 2019 was that I couldn't do it all, but I was also having trouble scaling from doing it all to finding the right person to do the production end of construction drawings for me so I could work on the business and the networking.
That's the hardest part. And the senior designer that works with me now, that was another kind of by accident. We had worked together at Niles a million years ago, and she had taken a break from the industry for several years and was getting back in, and we just had been in touch. So she came, and we just have been having a blast because we have such a history together.
Let's go on to what are some of the trends that you see coming forth in multifamily sector?
More compact units.
Okay. So what do you mean by compact? Like how small are we looking? Like tiny house small or like 200 square feet or 400 or I'm
thinking like a mix. So the smaller units will start out even smaller than they currently are.
What are do you have an idea what the current units are, I guess, or not? It's all good if you don't.
No, it just varies by property. Okay. But I think also amenity-wise, post-pandemic, larger amenity spaces that are like amenable to co-working, almost like a whole co-working office space within the apartment building.
So like a incubator, I guess you would say?
More like And
Co-sharing?
it would be unmanned, but it would have some amenities, like maybe some refreshments or whatever, but it would be just space for general co-working. So that they can accommodate the work from home with all these apartment dwellers that don't want to just sit in their apartment all day.
And that is a big trend. I think that's one of the biggest reason why I think there is such a shortage for the workforce right now. Like the jobs are there, but people don't want to do that anymore after being home for so long. They're like, I can be home, still do my job, and not have to commute an hour or 2 hours like I used to do at least each way. So what other I guess trends are you seeing in multifamily?
So kind of gearing it more toward a hotel feel, like a hotel lobby, kind of upscale, just so that it kind of makes you feel special when you walk in.
Yeah. I mean,
not utilitarian.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely, when I was designing, I definitely strive for. It's what is that emotional connection are you trying to convey to the client or the end user? Also,
I think there's a fine line between the practical and the presentable. Because a couple of years ago, it's like all of our developers wanted their leasing offices to look like the Apple Store. And they just wanted, standing height desks with nothing, no storage, really sparse. But the leasing agent has to work there too.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but that's what they wanted. I mean, like you said, they do have to work. Like it can't be immaculate all the time. And it has to be functional.
I mean, I love contemporary and I'm all for that, but sometimes it's just like, there's so much gray. It ends up looking and feeling utilitarian.
You got to balance the pop or the neutrals with the pops of color where it's not. Yeah, totally. So what, as far as materials and colors, what do you see coming forth?
Maybe it's a little more earthy neutrals. Kind of different textures.
And that's kind of what I've heard, and somewhat seen is we're kind of going back to that earth tone for materials.
Well, the biophilic design is such a big thing these days. And
what is that again? Sorry.
Biophilic design, bringing the outdoors in.
Okay.
So I think the neutrals complement that really well as far as the greenery and keeping the colors more simple.
All right. So what is one habit, trait, or mindset that you're kind of currently working on as far as your business or just personal?
Wow, that is a whole conversation. I would say for the business, just really tightening up as far as the business side of things and the finances and how to charge and when to bill. And the basic things that just kind of, you have to remind yourself to keep track of and do all the time.
Yeah. That was one thing it was challenging for me when I started was like, how much do I bill? What does, the industry do? What's standard?
I think my downfall is I often forget to charge for CA.
What is CA again?
Construction administration.
Okay.
We charge that hourly, and I'm always confused about when is the right time to bill it because it's just ongoing and you think it's done, but it's just never done throughout the construction. And so that slips through the cracks sometimes. So
the business side, you're tightening up, billing, we'll say. Personal, what kind of habits or traits did you were you working on?
Personal, I'm trying to train myself to be a morning person. Like an early morning person.
Like how early are we talking?
Exactly. I go through phases where I just naturally am up like that. And it always ends up being such a productive time, but naturally I'm more of a night owl. And so I'm trying to retrain myself And then it's like, I can't really be both. So,
no, you can't. So that's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you on social media? I know you have your website.
So our website is studiomatlanta.com. And we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, and we're also on Facebook.
So Marni, it was great talking with you today. We learned a lot about your background, about Studio M, how you got into the design industry, what, the leadership style is like at Studio M Interiors. And then also what kind of you see forthcoming in the multifamily sector. But before I go, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What advice do you have for inspiring leaders, designers, or architects, or just anyone trying to get into the industry?
I think similar advice to what was possibly given to me, or I wish was given to me right after I graduated school, when I told you it was so difficult to find a job in our field. Just, I think perseverance is a really good quality to have.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just to, stick with it and not give up, and just know that, something good will come out of it, whether it's what you originally think or not when you're looking for a job. And as far as the leaders, that's kind of a separate question. What advice I would give to leaders? I've read a ton of, I guess, through being a business owner, just read a ton of, business books and kind of business self-help, business advice category. And just from personal experience working under various leaders, I would say definitely, especially these days, that it's equally as important, if not more, to listen as it is to, strongly express an opinion.
So I totally agree. I feel like sometimes, and actually I know that a lot of the times what we try to look for in, where we're deficient, we try to create as leaders and, business owners. Going back to what you were talking about. So everybody, thank you for watching Empowering Design. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content if you found it beneficial. And we'll see you next week, we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next episode of Empowering Design.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marni.